Welcome to our breakout session, CAD Administration. My name is Adam Benson. I'm one of the application engineers at Quest Integration. And this breakout session was one of the many that were available at our Tech Day 2015 event earlier this year. So I hope you guys enjoy the content that I've put together for you today. Let's go ahead and get started. Here's the items that we're going to take a look at: developing a plan prior to install, the installation process, what that looks like, automating our installations, troubleshooting any failed installs that we may encounter, also ways that we can perform a clean uninstall of SolidWorks, and also very important, our post-install management. So let's take a look at developing a plan for our installer update. The very first thing I think we should ask ourselves is, do I have a backup? Do we have a backup of the user settings? Do we have a backup of the template locations? Do we have a backup of our PDM vault, the files that are in there, any settings that may go with that? This is very, very important that we back this information up prior to installation. Because if we're overriding any of these, if we encounter any troubles during this installer update, we may not have anything to fall back on, and that can be pretty devastating to a company. So we can utilize things like Copy Settings Wizard to take a copy of our user settings on the client machines. We can copy those template locations, place them in a different directory as just a backup, and there's also tools in place to create backups for our PDM vault, as well as the files and the settings. Next, we need to ask ourselves, what is going to be updated or installed? We've got a variety of different products that SolidWorks has to offer. We need to understand, what is being upgraded at this point. Things like the Network License Manager, Workgroup PDM server components, Enterprise PDM server components, SolidWorks electrical server components. We've got all the client machines that need to be updated or installed on. So we need to have an idea of where these installs are going to be created. Next, we need to look at the system requirements. Have our system requirements changed? This is very, very important, because if we go through with part of an install on some of our components and then realize that maybe one of our operating systems for a machine is no longer supported, we might have to fall back to the previous version. And so it's important to take a look at SolidWorks website and take a look at the system requirements page there for what is supported for the version that you are going to update to or install with. And do we have a local copy of the installation files, right? This kind of goes with what's going to be installed or updated. I want to make sure that I have all the installation files that are necessary, so we're not trying to run around mid-install looking for files or downloading files and creating more downtime that is necessary. So let's get a copy of those installation files that are readily available and we have access to. Do I have the correct serial numbers? So specifically, if we're performing a new install, we want to make sure that we're using the correct serial numbers. It's very important that as an admin, we are keeping track of what computers are using what serial numbers, so we're not in violation of our user license agreement with SolidWorks. And then kind of continuing that, will there be any downtime? It's definitely a question that we should ask ourselves. Sometimes we don't have access to some of the machines that we may need access to right away, and so we want to get an idea of how much downtime we're going to have. Is it a good time to perform this maybe during lunch, maybe when a certain department has left for the day? We want to keep these things in mind before we go through with the installer update. Can the machines be accessed with administration privileges? I'm hoping that we're able to access those machines being an administrator, but we do want to make sure that those machines are able to be accessed with those credentials for installation purposes. And then also, is my antivirus supported? This is one of the common questions that come up during failed installs, is the antivirus. Some antivirus software that is out there is not actually officially supported with SolidWorks. If that's not the case and it comes to be that the antivirus is causing a problem with the install, we may choose to temporarily disable it if we can. And then we also want to take a look to see, are we using a firewall? And if we are, we need to ensure that the correct port numbers are open for communication with SolidWorks and the various products. So what does this installation and update process look like? Well, we know that all of our products, with the exception of Enterprise PDM, can be installed from the SolidWorks Installation Manager, which is a huge time saver for us. We don't need to continuously pop in and take out different disks for these different products. It's all included with the same set of install files. Our Network License Manager should be the first thing that we're going to update. So if we're utilizing a network license, we want to update this license manager to the very latest version. And this does not create any downtime for our existing users. So SolidWorks actually has a built-in timer where it is looking back to the server for that license. And so if the license manager were to, go down, the service were to be stopped, and in this case in installation or updating of that license manager, the existing users that are using SolidWorks are not going to experience a problem. Now, if it's down for a considerable amount of time, SolidWorks will make them save, and then it'll close automatically. I would say after we update our Network License Manager, we should take a look at our server components being installed. So things like PDM, our electrical server components, because we can update these server components and still go in and then update the clients as well. And I think the clients take much longer, so to me, I recommend going through and upgrading the server components first. And that kind of goes along with what I just stated there. We can have our client installs done during the installation of these server components. So as long as our Network License Manager is up to date, even previous version users can pull a license. But with our server components, depending on what server components we're looking at, they all have to be on the same version. So we may consider starting the install of those clients as well. And then we want to check the SolidWorks RX tool to make sure that the client machines are using the correct graphics card driver. This is something that on the tech support side we get calls about quite a bit, whether it's crashing or weird graphical behavior. And 9 times out of 10 it's due to the graphics card. So you'll probably hear us request that you go in and take a look at that and update the graphics card driver if you're having any problems when you call in. So how can we automate some of these installations? Over the past couple of years, I've mentioned the administrative image quite a few times. I think this is an excellent way as an admin to keep tabs on our installs as well as, get these installations deployed quickly and easily. What's involved with creating an administrative image is we've got to have access to the installation files. Obviously, we create that image, and then after we create that image, we have a couple options in how we want to handle this. We can deploy that image manually via email or some type of messaging service. We can make it available on a shared location on the network for the clients to go and grab, or we can deploy it automatically. And I really like the ability to deploy these automatically. We can create different groups, and we can set up the client machines all through the option editor, which is included when we create the administrative image in the same folder for the install files. And that's what we can use to edit those administrative images. So if we need to go back and make a change to it, we can make a change to it and then deploy it to a particular client. But what's nice about this is I can create these different machines, I can put them into groups, I can edit the different options for the admin image individually for each machine, and then we can deploy those automatically. Now there's some things that we want to keep in mind here when we are using the automatic deploy option. We've got to make sure that our clients are logged in and they must have read access to the location where the install files are located. So we'll just create a shared directory on the network where the client machine has read access to. And then also one that I think is missed quite often, so if you're having problems with the automatic deployment, take a look in Active Directory when you're adding a computer to a group of a shared folder. You want to make sure that the computers option from object types is selected. I know I've come across that a few times where the automatic deployment wasn't working. Checking that, it was unchecked, I checked it, and immediately I was starting the installs. We also have to make sure that both the machines, the server and the target, are on the same domain. That's important too to ensure a successful deployment using that automatic option. We can also choose to silently install these SolidWorks products, and so we can deploy these installations via command line. Now one thing to keep in mind with this is we do need to create a batch file to install the prerequisite components first, as this is not included with the command line installation for SolidWorks products. And a great resource there is the installation guide. There's a whole section dedicated to showing you step-by-step how to develop that command line installation. So we're going through with our installs and we come across a failed installation. What do? Well, hopefully you give us a call. We should be the first resource for you guys to look to help troubleshoot these. Sometimes though, we may not be available right away. You know, it might be on the weekend. Hopefully you're not working on the weekend. But you want to have some tools available to you to take a look at troubleshooting some of these failed installs. The very first one is we want to make sure that we are indeed logged in with admin credentials. Right, the installation is going to require us to update some system drivers and other resources, and we have to have admin access to those locations. You could also try to temporarily disable the antivirus software. So if that's a possibility for you, there are chances that the antivirus is holding on to some of those files, quarantining some of those files necessary for installation. So you may choose to temporarily disable that. And then you should set the logging levels to high. And to do that, you can right-click at the top of the installation manager for SolidWorks, and it'll give you the option to set the logging levels to high. This gives you a more detailed set of logs for you to look at. And typically, if you have a failed install, you go through us, we'll request these logs. You can send those to us just through the email, and we'll go in and we'll take a look at some of the error codes that are being produced inside of there. Now again, if we're not available for whatever reason, you may choose to take a look at these log files yourself. Really well that we're looking at here is different Windows error codes. So you can search the log file for the error message or the error code, which can kind of take a little bit of time if you're not too familiar with the log files. One thing that I like to do right off the bat when I'm looking at these log files is do a quick find through the text file and just search for return value 3. And what return value 3 equals is a failed install with an error. And so that'll show you right where that error is, and it'll give you a little bit of a description about that error. And all that is just a simple error code. SolidWorks actually has a link that is available, you can see on screen, where you can take a look at these different Windows error codes for review. So how can we perform a clean uninstall? Well, the SolidWorks Installation Manager makes this very, very easy for us. If I go through and do an uninstall, you will notice that there is an advanced set of options down at the bottom. And if you choose change, you have the ability to get in there and either delete the registry items, delete folders, delete the downloaded location for SolidWorks install files. And it gives you a list of everything that is actually being deleted. Now, I highly recommend that as you click on these different advanced options for the uninstall, that you're verifying what is actually being uninstalled there, what it is adding for locations. We can also go through and do a manual removal through the Windows registry. So removing some of those registry keys that SolidWorks creates if we're not using the advanced option from the Installation Manager. Now, like I said, very important, our post-install management. So we've completed our installations. Are we done? Well, not exactly. As an admin, we still need to be taking a look at these machines, making sure we're going through proper system maintenance, making sure that everybody is on the same page. And the SolidWorks RX tool is designed to help us do this, utilizing the Diagnostics tab to take a look at some of the system resources there, as well as the System Maintenance tab, where we can go through and do simple maintenance on these machines, deleting files from temp directories, running defragmentation for the disk, whatever it may be. We can also utilize benchmark tests to see where we may have bottlenecks on a particular user's machine. The CAD Admin dashboard can be used. So as a subscription customer, you have access to the customer portal where you can take a look at the admin dashboard. And this provides feedback from your client machines and gives you a variety of information, how their machines are performing, if there's any crashing that's going on, the settings that they're using, and quite a bit more of information. I highly recommend, if you haven't taken a look at that, jump on there and see what that's all about. We may also need to transfer the license. Now this, kind of goes with our post-install management, and like I said earlier, being an admin for these group of users, we want to make sure that our licenses are, we are taking a look at what machines are being used for each license. So by utilizing transfer license, if we need to remove a license from a particular machine and use a different one, we can transfer that license off of that machine right through SolidWorks. And that's found under the Help menu when you open SolidWorks up. You will see transfer licenses. Now we may experience an unexpected termination or a crash inside of SolidWorks, right? This is part of just everyday use within SolidWorks. There are times where we come across this. How do we go about taking a look at what is causing that? Now again, this is something that you can definitely contact us in technical support for. We are definitely the #1 resource for that. But you can also take a look inside of the event viewer within Windows, and specifically the system and application event logs, to see if we have any errors in there and what those might be showing and what they might be saying about the SolidWorks process. So I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. As always, if you have questions, feel free to contact us through technical support. Thanks for watching.